All right, guys, welcome back into another episode of To The Show Baseball Podcast presented by Beyond the Monster. I am your host, Andrew Parker, and today's episode, we are going into the Miami Marlins organization. I almost said Florida Marlins. I had to stop myself, but we're into the Miami Marlins org. I got Will Schaumberg on, who was just named the Pitcher of the Week for Double-A this past week for his almost 7 perfect innings. He had 10 strikeouts, 1 hit. So he almost had a perfect outing going through 7. So we do talk about that, and obviously his successful year coming over in a trade from Seattle in 2024. He was able to get into a rhythm this year, and I do apologize in advance. By the way, his camera was not working, so if you are watching on YouTube right now, you just get to stare at my pretty face for the 20 minutes. So I do apologize for that, but still worth the listen, watch. Obviously, you can see me, but so I do apologize for that, but. Without further ado, I will shoot you on over to the interview with Will Schaumberg. All right, I am joined by Will Schaumberg, and Will is coming off probably his best outing of the season, I think, unless you probably had one in the lower level there, but I'm going to assume that it was probably one of your better starts of the year. You were named Pitcher of the Week for your performance, and that's exactly where I wanted to start this. So you are coming off of that great start last week, and you almost went perfect through 7. So what was working for you that day? I guess did you do anything differently prior to the start?
I sort of reflecting on it. I think when I got back in the clubhouse, I was like, how many strikes did I throw? And I'm like, 58 strikes on 100 pitches. I was like, yeah, it sort of felt that way. Like it wasn't particularly sharp at times. There were some big misses there. But when I sort of watched everything back, I'm like, I just didn't leave much over the heart of the plate. For a pitcher, like throwing 100 pitches, like you're bound to leave some over the heart of the plate. And for whatever reason, the strikes I threw were around the edges of the zone and they were difficult to hit. So that probably helped me a little bit. And then it was funny enough, pregame bullpen was atrocious. I mean, I threw probably 5 strikes the entire time. The sun was in my face. The bullpen's misaligned. It's like, I was like, all right, you know what? We're just going to go out there and figure it out. Once you got through the first inning and you sort of got my feet under me, I was like, okay, we're good. We're back to normal. So, they say sometimes the best pregame bullpens will end up with the worst performances, and I've been there before. So, I guess this was the opposite.
Well, I'd always consider you, just looking back at some of your numbers throughout your professional career, I would almost always consider you a pretty high strikeout guy. I feel like your K per 9's always up there with some of the better in the leagues. And having a game where you have 10 strikeouts doesn't happen all the time, especially in the minor leagues. I feel like a lot of guys don't go as deep into games usually in the minor leagues. So I feel like you having a 10 strikeout game, but you also had another one this year when you were in high A. So when do you kind of get to that point in the game where you're, especially like the one last week where you're kind of just like, holy cow, like I have like 8, 9 right now. Like when did you realize that you're like, okay, I'm kind of doing this today?
Well, I punched aside in the first. I was like, oh, that's a good start there. And usually, you can front load the strikeouts. It makes life easy on you. Then you just punch one an inning from there on out, 1 or 2. But I threw 7 innings, and the more innings I throw, the more opportunities I have for strikeouts. So I really, I punched aside in the first, and then I punched one every inning from there on out. Earlier this year, I punched 10 in 5 innings. That was a little more like, all right, I'm punching 3 this inning, 2 this inning, 2, and then 3. That's a little more high volume, I'd say, strikeouts. But once we got past the first inning, it was felt like very normal baseball. It's like ground ball, fly ball, strikeout kind of thing. It wasn't quite racking them up as there have been times in like shorter outings and things like that where you're K'ing basically 2, maybe 3 an inning, back to back innings. But yeah.
Well, I was going to say it was your second start in Double-A. It was your 3rd outing. You had come out of in a relief appearance, your first outing there in Double-A. But so after spending all year in high and having pretty good success for yourself, Have you, I know it's a very small sample size, it's 2 starts and a relief appearance, but is there anything you had to do with your game, like whether it was, your pitch mix, arsenal, usage, whatever? Like, have you had to adjust anything since going up to double A? 'Cause obviously you have, a little more polished hitters at every level you go up. So have you noticed anything so far and had to change?
Not entirely. I think the first outing I had, I sort of noticed. I was like, all right, especially with two strikes, like you gotta you gotta be real competitive with two strike pitches. I love to elevate the four seamer with two strikes. Throw the sweeper off the plate, um, and I wasn't getting the chase that I was used to. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to be a lot more competitive here with two strikes, and that adjustment came quickly. That was sort of the only real difference I noticed. A lot of the guys I remember facing high A already and stuff like that in their names. So, like, it's very much the same level of hitters. I'm used to facing. You might just not have um, the less talented ones at the bottom of the order anymore. That's sort of the only difference that I've noticed so far. And better hitters make you be on a little bit more fine and everything like that, which I actually, reflecting on um, my, at bats against some of the better hitters in the minor leagues, prospects of that sort, I always find myself, I'm like, I executed really well. Like, I tend to punch them out a lot too. I'm like, maybe you raise the level of your competition in a way. So I think for that, it's been good for me. Um, you know, giving every guy I face their credit and have to be on my A game instead of like, oh, like, I think I'm just better than this guy. I'm just gonna blow by him, and throw a sweeper off the plate, and get him out. That's when you get sort of you take things for granted. That's when you get in bad spots.
Yeah, sometimes I'll hear some pitchers kind of tell me it's like, hey, when I was down in low A or high A, it's like I could get away like with a mistake pitch. Say I left the ball hanging or I left the ball some up in the zone or whatever. And you can kind of get away with it a little more down in low A, high A. Then once you start getting the double A and triple A, it's like those hitters, well, especially triple A, because you're facing guys that, possibly have 8, 10 years in professional baseball. It's like you're not going to get away with those pitches. So I always like asking that question just to see, like, I know it's a very small sample size, but I didn't know if you maybe saw a few things. But maybe as next year goes on, because you are as of right now, you're in your final week of the year right now with the double A season ending this week. Did it kind of go by pretty quick this year? Like, what are your overall thoughts on what you did this year? Like, did you kind of do, I guess, so where did you come in this year as far as evaluating yourself? Like, did you have season long goals that you wanted to hit that you did or didn't? I guess, what would you grade your year this year?
Um, it was a like tumultuous like beginning of the season for me. I guess coming into the year, um, I wanted to make it double A by the end of the year. That was sort of the only goal. And we have certain things in the Marlins organization that um, we value more than other things. So the strikeouts are one of those, and I've been able to do that at a high rate. So um, I knew that, like in high, if I strike guys out and don't walk guys, I'm gonna have a good chance to make a double A by the end of the year. I don't really set goals for my performance and things like that. They can be fluky at times, random and luck based. Really, I'm just trying to strike out as many guys as I can without walking them. You keep it simple that way, and it doesn't matter what team you're facing at what level. It's like if you strike out far more guys than you walk, you're going to have success long term. So I had a up and down first 2 months there. Sort of dealt with some shoulder issues and everything, and once middle June rolled around, the shoulder issues started to go away. Actually, no, they actually started at the beginning of June. Um, and then once the end of June rolled around, they started to go away a little bit. And then once I got the extended break with the All-Star break, um, it all sort of just went away. And then I was able to hit the ground running post All-Star break. Um, so that was good.
Yeah, well, I'll say, I know you were kind of saying you got to strike more guys out than you walk, and I think punching out 10 and walking 1 in your last outing, you're on the right track to finish off your year pretty strong. So something I did want to ask as well, obviously 2025, you had I think it was probably a little less crazy of a year than 2024 was for you. Just, obviously changing organizations and having to do that in the middle of the season and go to all new teammates and all that. Like, I'm sure was pretty hectic for you in the middle of your season last year. So is that something that you do credit with being able to get in more of a rhythm this year than maybe you did last year, just because of, a trade happening? I guess looking back at it now, what was that experience like? And I guess how have you, grown from that and were able to just kind of like get in that rhythm this year?
Yeah, it's funny you asked about expectations in the last question. Spring training 2024, what were my expectations with Seattle? You know, in my mind, as an undrafted free agent, I'd assume I would have been a reliever. And I was like, if I can stay healthy the whole year, have a solid year in single A Modesto, like that's a good year. Um, that was sort of the expectations I gave for myself. It's not ended up what happening. But I, I wanted a job as one of the starters out of camp, and just kept going from there. Threw well in single A for 3 months there, and got promoted to high A. At that point, I was like, it's been a great year, blowing out my expectations and everything like that. And then I get traded a month later, which was really a whirlwind. Did not see that one coming at all. Obviously being undrafted, being so sort of an old or undersized right-handed pitcher with some relief risk there. Was not thinking I was getting traded at all. So that sort of blindsided me a tad. And I really enjoyed my time with Seattle. The people there, my teammates, my coaches. So it was tough. It's probably the only industry in life where you could be sort of ripped up and placed in another spot without your control. So that transition was definitely different. And when I get over to the Marlins, they're transitioning their whole front office, their whole player development. So I go from what I felt like was a well-oiled machine with Seattle to a lot of changes with Miami right when I got over, and I was like, I definitely didn't handle it the best. And the back half of last year did not throw well at all. Um, but this year was definitely going through spring training and everything with them. We had a clear plan of attack, and it made everything far easier. Going into the season, what I need to do to have success, and then to continue to move up and continue to have success. And then I when I got up here a few weeks ago, that was my first sort of locker room change since I got traded, and I was like, well, this is nice. I walk into a locker room where I know everybody instead of 30 new faces and 6 new coaches. Um, so yeah, 2024 was a wild year, but it was an important year. So
Yeah, I feel like you faced a lot of new challenges last year, and obviously, like you said, you kind of have a more unique story. You're not the guy that went to the SEC school, got drafted in like the first, second round, whatever, and you were an undrafted free agent out of Davidson. And I will ask about them in a little bit because I want to show some love to them. But you have a unique journey, and for you to be traded, like you said, it's like you kind of like people probably didn't expect it because it's you like the way you came, the journey you were on, and it's just one of those things where I don't know, you nailed it. It's like it's the only profession, I guess, professional sports is where you can literally have to pick up your life and move somewhere else and go somewhere else, like without you consenting to it. So nobody else's day job can do that out in the real world. So I always find that fascinating that, sports are like that. You can just like uproot a guy just for a trade. So, but okay. So you did bring up something interesting that I did want to ask about. You were talking about how, you thought you were going to probably be a reliever, and you ended up starting almost every game coming into this year. But this year you have done a mix of both. It looks like you've come out of the pen quite a few times. You've started a handful of times. And I don't think people truly realize how hard that is sometimes just to, for your everyday routine of like, your starting routine is much different than whenever you're coming out of the bullpen. So has that been a challenge for you this year? Just kind of going back and forth a little bit and like maybe not knowing week to week, even early in the season, like I might be starting this week or I might be coming in the sixth. Like How hard has that been?
Um, well, the way we have it mapped out with the Marlins is we have a multitude of piggybacks, they'll call them. Basically a small start on the piggyback of the starter. Um, so the schedule's pretty normal like a starter, but you're just going to come in the fifth inning or the sixth inning,
Okay.
and throw from there. So it's not really true relief. The only difference is if I throw pregame, I got to wait an hour and 20 more minutes before hour and a half before I can throw my pregame bullpen and then go in the game. It's not the timing isn't perfect and all, um, but you make it work. I think part of like um, you know being the piggyback at times is honestly it's a little less stressful. I feel like, in my opinion, because you put in a game and the other team hasn't game planned for you at all. They don't really know how long you're going to be in there as a reliever. Um, So you can sort of just go ahead and take, the pedal to the metal on them. And at times, you might come in and you might face the top of the order or the middle or the bottom of the order. When you're starting, you're going to face the top of the order the most, and those are going to be the best hitters. And I'm like, at times, I come in as a piggyback and I'm facing, 6, 7, 8, and I'm like, all right, I'm only going to face top of the order probably once. That helps you out a lot. So, um, enjoy doing both. The schedule's been easy from like communication standpoint. Like, you're gonna be starting this week or you'll be piggybacking this week. Um, so it's not as hard as I guess you may think it might be. It's pretty cut and dry.
Okay. Yeah, the piggyback thing I have heard it's kind of catching on in a few other organizations as well. I know a lot of orgs like doing it with their high A, single A, high A, and double A teams. So it is very interesting. It's kind of a newer concept a little bit. So, but all right, I got a couple questions left for you here before I do let you slide. And I have done over 200 of these, these interviews with minor league players all around the league. And you are the very first guy from Davidson. I have never got the chance to talk with somebody from their baseball program. I only know Davidson from the college basketball days. Obviously, they had some famous runs in the NCAA tournament. They also have a very famous basketball alum that a lot of people know or probably don't know that he went there. But so I want to know about the baseball program, though. You spent 4 years there. It's in the A10. What was it like playing there? And I guess show some love a little bit for Davidson baseball.
Oh yeah, I love my 4 years at Davidson and everything. You talk about Cinderella runs. 2017 Davidson baseball. They knocked off number one UNC not once but twice in their own regional, and they made a super regional. And that was sort of, I guess, the inflection point for Davidson baseball as a whole. Since then, um, my 4 years, we did a lot of winning and everything. My junior year, we won 43 games. We just had one bad day in the tournament, and knocked us out from being in a regional. And you know, Davidson, a lot of people like to reflect on it. There's something in the Kool-Aid there, but it's a special place. It doesn't, it shouldn't be. We shouldn't win as much as we did, based on the academic restraints and things like that, funding the league and the travel and all that stuff. Certain restrictions we have just in on scheduling games from an academic perspective. But we did. I think it attracts special people there. Had a lot of great teammates that have gone on to play at big schools, and we got quite a few guys in professional baseball right now, as is. Um, so yeah, loved it.
Yeah, I always find it cool, like, some of the programs that aren't as talked about, obviously, as, some of the Power Five conferences or whatever it is. And, and for guys to be all, sprinkled around professional baseball, I've had guys on in the past few weeks that came from JUCOs and D3 schools and all this. And I don't know, I like their journeys a little better. It's just like, I feel like you got that little chip on your shoulder and you're kind of repping for your school that you came from, that made you, and you're in professional baseball just like the SEC guy or the Big Ten guy or whatever. So I love it. All right, so I have one question left here for. Well, actually, I got two. So my first one here is, obviously the season is coming to a close, but over the last few months, obviously minor league baseball, you have an off day every Monday, and you're a pitcher, so I think I might know where this is going. But how do you spend those off days? Like, what do you like doing in your free time?
Well, I was joking with the guys. It was my what ended up being my last day in Beloit, and it was supposed to rain on Monday. We're trying to get a foursome together, got to play some golf. And it's like, oh, it's supposed to rain. I was like, this is the first time I'm not gonna play golf, and literally since I think the first off day in May we had. April in
Wow.
Beloit was kind of cold, but I pretty much played every Monday, and I ended up getting called up after the game. So, I spent all Monday driving. And then this past, 2 Mondays ago, I was sort of settling in and everything. Got to play yesterday though. Got my fix in.
There it is.
But yeah, I play a lot of golf and everything like that. So usually every off day is 4 or 5 hours on the golf course, and then just hanging out from there.
Well, you probably got a few more courses to choose from where you're at now than where you came from.
Hey,
Uh,
a lot of my buddies are texting me about golf in Florida being better than golf in Wisconsin. So far, golf in Wisconsin, you can't beat it. I mean,
okay.
they
Fair.
they grow grass for a living up there. They're beautiful courses at a great price. So, summer in Florida, difficult on the grass. So
Yeah, that's fair.
so far, I will say Wisconsin's up there, probably with the Carolinas, when it
Wow.
comes to golf, in my opinion.
It's high
I did
praise.
I did have a little South Florida golf taste, during spring training of that nature. Um, that's hard to beat at times, but uh, Wisconsin golf's definitely a whole lot of fun. You got some thick rough and a lot of wind up there in the Midwest, so I enjoyed it.
All right. Yeah. I mean, the Florida golf is good in February, obviously, when it is not possible in Wisconsin and it is not
Exactly.
100 degrees outside in Florida. But I'm assuming in the summer it is probably horrible. So I'm with you. All right. Last question I have for you here, and I will let you slide. Like I mentioned earlier, we are in the final week of the AA season this week. I know AAA still has, I think, a week or two left, but minor league season is coming to a close. And your off season is right in front of you here. What are you going to do this off season? Like, do you have any big plans? Like, are you already planning on working out somewhere? I guess what are you going to be up to this off season?
I started working with Tread out of Charlotte last off season. I live, like in Winston, so it's about an hour and 20 minutes north. And I live relatively close to Davidson as well. So last off season, I sort of split time between Davidson and Tread, and some places back home and things like that. Um, but yeah, it'll be much the same. Working my Tread guy, and getting to play together there from you know what are our throwing goals, and what are just from physicality's perspective, what are our goals there and things like that. But um, nothing much. Spent a lot of time in North Carolina, and um, about it.
Well, nothing but love for Tread. Obviously, they are fantastic and work with so many people around professional baseball. They are some of the best. But all right, Will, I appreciate all the time. Obviously, wishing you the best of luck over this final week and into your off season. But thank you so much for doing this and hopping on.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. You have a good one.